right, thank you very much. Right, so first off, I would love us to, before we even dive into it, right, can you introduce yourself in 10 seconds because we're running very short of time. Can you tell us what you do, right? Tell us what you do at the company and what your company is about. So I would like to start from Shei, and then we can go here.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, God, these lights. Okay, my name is Shei Otun, and I currently sit as the Chief Financial Officer at Vesti. And for Vesti, what do Vesti do? Vesti is a migration FinTech company, that spans its services in financial and migration services for intending immigrants. Yeah, we are the go-to provider for legal, financial, and migration services for people that want to move from point A to point Z. We provide services for mobility for humans and capital again. So from the minute you start thinking of migration, you find Vesti there to the very point of your destination.
All right, thank you very much. Ufoma, please do us the honor. Yeah.
Thank you, Black. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ufoma Thompson, Head Business Development and Sales at Maplerad. My colleague was just on, so he said quite a lot about what we do. But Maplerad is a fast-growing BaaS FinTech provider. What we do is we make sure that we have API service for fast-growing FinTechs, upcoming startups, and FinTechs. We collaborate with them, and we provide APIs so that all you have to do is focus on the innovation of your product. We put aside the hassles of compliance and banking license at Maplerad, where you're super behind the scenes.
All right, Biodun.
Well, it's working now. All right, thanks, Gerald. My name is Biodun. I lead business development at Okra. So Okra is an open finance provider. What we do is we build infrastructure that allows individuals and businesses easily connect their bank accounts to any third-party application. A good use case that we typically see is that if I were to ask you, anyone here today, you have multiple accounts at different banks in Nigeria, how would you go about seeing all those real-time transactions in one place? Before Okra, that was really impossible or really hard, but using the Okra API, literally anyone, any business can now connect their account to any app that they want to use.
All right, thank you very much. So coming back to you, Shei, before now, right, we used to be very used to the traditional banking models until the disruption came, and then you had the emergence of a lot of digital banks, or aka neobanks, as we know them today. So can you tell us, we've been hearing, for those that are, for the benefit of those that don't know what neobanks are, and the direct impact neobanks are actually having on traditional banks, right? So try to demystify it for us. What are neobanks?
Okay. I'll try to make this as simple as possible and quite short. I won't use terms that are very big. All right, neobanks are simply digital-only financial institutions that offer the same banking and financial services and products, without having physical branches like the traditional banks. And since their emergence, there's been a disruption in that industry because neobanks leverage on technology, AI, data analysis, data science, just think of those things, blockchain, and they make use of this technology to improve and enhance even existing banking products and services for its users. And with that leverage, again, they offer low fees, better transactions, fast transactions, and also keep attracting increasing number of customers, thereby also making the industry even very, very competitive. So basically, that's what neobanking is all about.
All right, thank you very much. Now, let's go to open banking, right? I'm familiar with what open banking is, but for the sake of those who don't know what open banking is all about, right? Can you tell us, first off, what is open banking, right? Because these terms can be really confusing. We hear of banking as a service, we hear of neobanks, now there's open banking, right? So try to make it as simple as possible, that's one. And then what is the impact of open banking in our environment today? So give us simple use cases, how we see the ecosystem and players in the space using your open banking solutions.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I will try and break it down as much as I can. So open banking, the core concept of open banking is simply giving consumers the ability to easily manage and share their data with anyone. So by banking data, we mean your account balance, your account transactions, your KYC, your financial KYC at the bank, literally what the banks have on record with you. And this concept is important for a few reasons, right? We actually work and use our bank data more than you think. So whether it's trying to send money to your friend, and you need to know what your account balance is, or whether it's just trying to take a loan and you need to share your bank statement with the lender, you are constantly interacting with your bank account. But the problem before now was that it was a really expensive, really inefficient process to try and get your data out of your bank and into the places where you want them to be. So to further illustrate the example, if you wanted to actually take a loan and the lender was saying, give me your bank statement so I can analyze you for that loan. Before now, you would have to physically go to a branch, queue up, sign up, go through a very painful process to access your own bank statement before you can then get a loan. But open banking changes all of that. Open banking is now giving consumers like yourself and businesses the ability to easily allow anyone connect to their bank using what we call APIs or application programming interfaces. Use those APIs to manage your data and share your data. And now these consumers, like you and I, are able to enjoy services outside of the bank whilst using our banking data. And to the second point, this is powerful for a few reasons, right? We believe that true innovation is driven by insight, and we believe that insight is driven by data. So some of the greatest products that will ever be built in this ecosystem, they just simply could not exist because the data that was needed to create those products were not accessible, or they were in the nooks and crannies of the financial ecosystem. But as banking becomes more open, as finance becomes more open, and data becomes more accessible, we will start to see developers that are building more daring products. We will start to see visionaries that are literally building the impossible. And at the end of the day, we think that we will just have a much more better, a much more healthier financial ecosystem.
Awesome, awesome. So before I come to you, Ufoma, just immediately following up with that, right? Basically, I'm giving a third-party access to my banking details, right? So I'm sure you get this a lot. There are a lot of security concerns, right? So can you speak, you can just tell us how safe is it to plug it into my bank details to get whatever it is you want to get, right? So just you can speak to how safe that actually is, because I'm sure there are a lot of concerns around that.
Sure, absolutely. So the key aspects of this is that, one, access to that data is completely within your own control. So you have to give consent for that third party to access your data. And the thing behind consent is that the same way it can be given, it can also be revoked. So you are also able to sort of cancel access. But just the ability to be able to even easily just share data with any third party, that convenience is what open banking is offering. But there are also, just data privacy protections that ensures that that exchange is happening in the most secure, most secure way that is in line with best practices. So you can always give consent, you can always remove it, and you always be assured that your data is not being shared with someone that you haven't given consent to.
All right, thank you very much. So Ufoma, the previous speaker that just came talked about banking as a service, right? But that was pretty high level. So if you can go a bit deeper so that we understand it on a day-to-day level, right? What are some of the areas we see banking as a service taking place today in our everyday life? I feel that will give us a better understanding of what banking as a service really is, right, and how it works.
Thank you, Black. Okay, banking as a service, as we know, BAS, banking as a service, as we know, is providing APIs, right, so that normal fintechs, startups, even large fintechs don't have to go through the hassle of getting those banking licenses. It has helped so much because fintechs can now focus on innovation. They can focus on their product. You know, it's very cumbersome for you to start getting the licenses. If you've ever tried to get licenses from regulatories, let's not call any here, but it's really tedious. It can be over 1 year, 2 years, sometimes 3 years. Your application is still pending. So imagine you want to go to the market. You have beautiful products that can reach the unbanked, can reach the undeserved. BAS gives that opportunity for fintechs to be very innovative. Now you can do banking on the go. You know, this is 2023. You don't want situations where you cannot get access to financial services. Some people have never had that opportunity, but fintechs can now reach out. So we are the platform. We provide the platform for these customers or these fintechs and even businesses, SME businesses, to be able to not only do business in Nigeria, but in Africa and around the world. So BAS allows for one-step banking all around the world. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Coming back to you, Sheyi, you know, we've seen, in recent times, we've seen scenarios where, you know, regulations have totally destroyed company offerings or even the companies themselves, right? So I would like you to share from your experience, right, what are some of the regulatory hurdles that, you know, we experience today across, you know, both neobanking and banking as a service and open banking as well, right? So what are some of those regulatory, if you can share from your experiences, and how do you think all these players can navigate? Is it by working with these regulatory authorities, or do you have to, you know, like Jack Ma of Alibaba will say, you go ahead of the regulation and build, right? So just share your experiences, yeah.
So regulatory compliance is an issue for both startups, existing companies, not just in Nigeria, but Africa at large. I was in Ghana some weeks back as we are currently expanding, and I remember going to their own regulatory authorities over there to get some things right. And the way it can be very messy in Nigeria, that's why it is very messy there. I'm telling you. And even when we went to Zambia, Kenya, the same thing. So it's common, yeah, amongst all countries that regulatory compliance can be very messy. And by experience, yeah, when I mean experience in the industry of taxation right now, I would say that one has to do with accepting that, like she said, we're in 2023, things are emerging, things are changing. Yeah, companies are coming up every day, new ideas are being birthed every day. So we should have a general sort of regulatory act that makes it easy for everyone to operate seamlessly. How we operate here is different from the way they operate in Ghana. Very different from how they operate in South Africa, in Kenya, in Zambia, and I can keep mentioning companies like that. And again, with the help of experts on your team, I think it makes it less cumbersome for companies and for startups generally. So I always advise that, as much as you are gathering talent, yeah, in your team, always have an expert, yeah, in that field that can make your life easy, because again, compliance costs can be, it can eat deep into your purse if you are not careful. You can be doing your operation on one day and once one authority agency is eating on your day and come, they're putting stickers everywhere that you have not done this, you have not done that, and they will halt your operation, you understand? So on a general level, yeah, compliance to regulatory authorities and their acts, I think we need to revisit this. It's not something we can just say, like, oh, it's very simple like that. But I think there could be like a general act that will make everyone operate seamlessly.
All right. Ufoma, you know, have you ever thought about this? Do you get scared, right? You know, knowing that you're not a bank, but you're selling banking services, right? So just tell me, you know, how do you think the regulation would, you know, at some point in time, come to address this? Do you ever get scared that the CBN or any other regulatory authorities might come for you, knowing that, you know, you are reselling some of these banking services? Or are you already working with, you know, these regulatory authorities? Is there a handshake between yourself, right, and maybe some of the players in the space to give you some form of cover? Or are you working directly with the CBN? You know, so are you scared? Or if you're not, can you tell us how you're able to, go around some of those concerns?
This is definitely a black question. I'll catch you. Okay, but yeah, number one, I don't think that it's like preparing for an exam. I don't think you can just close your eyes, pray to God, and pray it just goes away. We're definitely, Maplerad is definitely working with regulators, with CBN, and so many of the other, we're compliant. We are also working with traditional banks because that's what BAS does. They are the ones that have that relationship with traditional banks. And from there, prepare everything for FinTech so they don't have to go through that hassle, like I said earlier. But I do believe, going to the second part of your question, is I think there has to be a round table. There's a lot. This is the future. FinTech, financial services, digital services, whichever model we're talking about here, is the future all around the world. I think there has to be less of strangulation and more of how can we resolve this. I believe that traditional banking, the regulators, and the FinTech space should work hand in hand. So how do we do it? Because these are people that have worked hard, so their money should be safe. But they also want their businesses they need more speed, efficiency. I mean, I have an example. The other day, forgive me, my traditional bankers, but I was at a bank the other day, and this guy came in, and he needed an account. He got a job at a multinational as a driver. Do you know that he had been there for 4 days? He had come 4 times. Do you know that his employment was rescinded because he could not get that account opened? Now, at Maplerad, that would not happen. There's less KYC, there's more integration. So imagine that traditional bank had worked hand in hand with a Maplerad or whichever, you understand. It's just the same way as Vesti. Okay, even though they're taking away our... but yeah, people that want to go to other countries, they should work with embassies. You understand what I mean? So there has to be more collaboration with these regulators rather than just seeing like fintechs are not the way forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Now, coming to you, Biodun, we are seeing a lot of government activities around privacy and consumer data protection and all of that, right? Now, how are you staying compliant, right, with these new regulations and with these new privacy things that we're seeing coming up every day, right? So how do you ensure, because you are dealing a lot with customer data, consumer data, so how do you stay compliant, right, so that the regulatory authorities don't come for you, at some point in time?
Yeah. So it's important to have regulators in this space, someone that is always keeping everybody in check, someone that is able to come up with policies that ensures that bad actors don't get in the first place. And I think for us at Okra and probably open banking, there are 2 things that are very clear. Or let me rephrase it. There's one thing that's very clear and there's one thing that we have no idea about. So the first one that we do know is that the regulators are pro-consumer, which means that they are there and they've made it very clear that they are there to protect consumers, you and I. We don't expect that to change. And with the policies that we've seen, or the guidelines that we've seen in open banking specifically, talking about the framework that was released 2 years ago and the guideline that was released earlier this year, CBN made it very crystal clear that consumers should have full control over their data, and they should be able to access that data at any bank and pretty much just share or rescind access to that data as well. So they are pro-consumers, and we expect that will continue to remain. That will not change, and we act accordingly internally as well with that regard. The other thing we don't know, however, is we have no idea how big this space can be. We don't know all the innovative products that we will see now that data is accessible. And where I'm going with this now is that if we look at an economy like, let's say, the US or the UK, where they have more established open banking laws, we see companies like Venmo and Robinhood that are literally worth billions of dollars that are powered they are mostly using open banking providers and a lot of BaaS providers as well, now coming up in those space. We don't have those type of consumer products here yet, But now that we now have infrastructure that can enable that, I think that we will begin to see those type of ideas and innovative products come up. Where regulation, or where the challenge is for regulation now, is not over-regulating those type of businesses before they come up. Like, not coming up with policies that actually prevent us from seeing those type of products in the first place. But it's also important not to regulate those businesses too late so that we can, again, continue to protect customers. So I think that our jobs as sort of leaders in this space is to ensure that we're working as closely with the regulators as possible to advise them on what we think is the future. Because innovative products don't necessarily fit into any existing mold, right? So when somebody comes up with a very new idea, it's hard to fit it into an existing policy. Most times you have to create policies because of the idea that has come up. So we think that we would see policies that are driven because of new ideas that are now possible. And we will just continue to act accordingly and obviously advise customers, advise regulators as well.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for that. Now, because of time, my alarm is already buzzing. I think we're way behind schedule. We're way behind schedule, right? Now, I have one more question. I had a series of questions here, but I have to skip to the last one, which is, in recent times, or not recent times, for a very long time, we've been hearing about, banking the unbanked, and then we've seen CBN's cashless policies, and we've seen all of this, right? Now, I'm curious. When, we're about having the elections, we had some regulations from CBN, the Naira currency, the change, right, in the design. And we see how it disrupted the flow of transactions because there was no cash. People could not carry out transactions. And it was very surprising to me, right? Because a lot of vendors wouldn't receive transfers. They didn't have account numbers, it was very funny. In 2023, people don't have account numbers. And we have a lot of startups, a lot of FinTechs trying to address these issues. So now I'm curious, are we actually banking the unbanked, or we're rebanking the already banked? Because it's quite interesting that a lot of people, even in Lagos, don't have account numbers, right? So I would like to start from Sheyi. How do you think neobanks can address this issue, right? So that we can see a lot more people actually banked and embedded in the entire ecosystem so that we can seamlessly carry out transactions, right? And it's easy for us.
So, from my personal point of view right now, I would say neobanks need to do more sensitization. That's the word. Yeah, majorly we have plenty startups in Lagos than most of the states here in Nigeria, and you find it that there's a village in some part of southeast, southwest that most of them have just one bank, and you have to walk miles to get there. And even some of us or some folks here still have parents who still stay outside of Lagos. I'm like, Tobambo, Banco Cash Dani. You understand? And it's amazing. And sometimes I just ask myself, when will these people get the product, the service, the life that we Lagosians, let me use that word, already experiencing as regards new banking, open banking, and all of that, And how soon will all of this get to them? So I think a lot of sensitization has to be done, a lot of activations have to be done. Then again, collaborations.
Sorry. Sensitization on whose part though? Are you referring to the government or are you referring to the startups?
Yeah, so sensitization on both startups, the government, we all have a role to play. Even traditional banks, we all have a role to play. Yeah, I think it was one talking about collaboration, she spoke about collaboration at some point. And I can imagine traditional banks collaborating with FinTechs and how they can reach to people even outside the space of technology and how this thing can be incorporated in their day-to-day life. Where you don't have to walk 10,000 miles or 5,000 miles to the nearest bank in your community, and with just having access to a phone can help you start enjoying banking services and financial services. So a lot of sensitization will bridge that gap a little. A lot of inclusion as well will also bridge that gap. So we all have a role to play, both the government, both the startup companies, and even the traditional bank.
All right, awesome. Awesome. Ufoma, do you want to take a stab at that?
Yes, fantastic what my colleague said. Really, it's all about collaboration. I really don't understand why in this part of the world and in my beloved country, everybody just wants to eat by themselves. It has to be collaboration for the future of Nigeria. Nigeria is an amazing country. We're over 200 million people. You'll be surprised if you look around here in this hall, you'll be surprised most people are less than 50 years old. And that means they're fast-paced, moving business. They want their business on the go, whether it's 1,000 naira business, whether it's a million naira business. So imagine that the government, traditional banks, I used to work in the bank. In a particular branch I managed, there were over 80,000 customers in that branch. But how many of them could we reach out to? How many staff in the banks? It can't be one-on-one anymore. We have to, leverage on technology. And that can only happen where fintechs don't feel that they are being attacked, harassed. So traditional banks come to the table and they say, okay, you're a fintech. What are the technological products do you have that we can reach out to somebody in Sokoto, in Kano? Do you understand? You'll be surprised. A lot of fintechs wants to go out there. We don't need to be there physically. That's what technology, the beauty of technology. But we need to know that we have the backing of traditional banks that have a lot of data, and then we have the backing of government as well. Don't get it twisted. I do not believe you should just start up as a fintech and go out there. These are people's hard-earned money. But if there's a collaboration, there's a body not to be closing people down, but working together, I assure you that Nigeria, nobody can reach us.
All right, thank you. Biodun, how do you think open banking is solving that problem for us?
I think financial inclusion is a very important aspect of open banking. It's very important to us as a company at Okra as well. Our vision is literally to connect 1 billion Africans to the global economy. There are a couple of things we try to do. I'll talk about two. I give two examples a lot because if you give 3 examples, it's too much. If you give 1, it's too short. So 1, people complain, 3, people sleep. So I think 2 is a good balance. So the first example, I think when you are talking about somebody that has a banking account or somebody that has a bank, as far as financial inclusion is concerned, you're doing pretty well, right, if you already have a bank account. And open banking further enables you, right, by allowing you to connect that account. But we have sort of challenged ourselves to take that a bit further by not just opening up banking, but opening up finance, right, which is why I introduced us as an open finance provider. The idea there is that we want people to be able to connect a bank account, but we also want them to be able to connect their pension account. We also want them to be able to connect their savings investment account. And if you don't have any of this, we want you to be able to connect your telecom, your teleco, your information with your telco, so that somebody that does not have a bank account is still able to use their top-up data or their data usage to get a loan and enjoy financial services. And that's possible if we do the hard work of connecting with these banks, connecting with alternative financial systems that are non-banks or that are not the traditional banks. The second thing that we try to challenge ourselves to do as well is that we think that as long as we're able to provide a solid infrastructure, there are many developers, many in this room that are more brilliant, more passionate, more skilled at actually solving this problem and building products than we are. And it is our responsibility to be able to build a very solid foundation for those type of developers to now build products that solves and improves financial inclusion, so that we're able to provide an infrastructure that supports a neobank that wants to provide financial services to people displaced by terrorism in the north, or we're able to provide infrastructure to that genius developer that is building a fintech app for people that don't have smartphones. All of this is possible because all of this would only be possible if there's that infrastructure in the first place. And as far as we're able to enable this type of products, and those products are also able to compete with each other and give people options, give people choice in terms of pricing as well, we think that we would help actually contribute a bit better to financial inclusion.
All right, thank you. Ufoma, do you have any final words for us?
I hope the relevant stakeholders are hearing this. I want to appreciate Startup Week for this, and we need to have more of this. We shouldn't just leave once we've spoken here. We shouldn't just go to sleep. We have to keep talking. You know, so many people have left this country and felt like, okay, we want to go to a country that is made, but we need to make our own country. And for all of us, we need to collaborate. We need to see that it's not just, I shouldn't take everything. I can give you part of it. Okay, when it comes to data, let me come to you instead of trying to struggle to do that. You understand? We need to be able to work together, and the regulatory bodies, don't make it in a situation whereby we have to run from you. And also, traditional banks, you are our father, we are the children, the FinTech space, the models here. We can work hand in hand to create an amazing legacy for Nigeria and for Africa. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Shay, do you want to add to that so that we can bring this to a close?
All right, so she has said more than a lot, so I'm just going to add to it that collaborations will do a lot of good for this ecosystem and even the external environment at large. And like she said, to the traditional banks, giving us that space to collaborate, yeah, as fintechs, as startups will give birth to enhanced products, services that will benefit not just the ecosystem itself, its customer base, and even people at large, down outside Nigeria, outside Africa, and to the world.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so we bring this session to a close now. I'm sure you've been able to get, a lot from this session. For me, the goal was to demystify these terms as much as possible. Before now, we've been hearing about neobanks, we've been hearing about open banking, we've been hearing about banking as a service, right? But all these panelists here today have done justice to these terms. And I'm sure there was something Biodun said that really stood out for me, right? And that's the fact that, number one, it's all about, working together. The regulatory authorities have to work with innovators, and they have to do such in a way that, one, they're not over-regulating, so that people can actually build innovative solutions that can disrupt and actually connect our economy, connect our environment, connect our communities, right? And at the same time, they have to actually keep a close watch to also ensure people are not going so far away from what they're actually supposed to do. And there is, we have stipulated guidelines to ensure that we're building solutions that are not only disrupting, but also doing it in a compliant manner. All right, so thank you very much for this session. Thank you for your time. We really, really learned a lot, right? And I really appreciate you for that. Thank you.